We ready? Oop. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Oops, hold on. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
So, good morning, everybody. This is, I think this is our last meeting. It's January 31st. The report is due tomorrow. So, I want to start by welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. I want to start by doing the minutes. I think everybody received the minutes. So with that said, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, great. Thanks, Melissa. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Abstentions or noes? No. Okay, good. So I would like to, before we go into, I'd like to take just a very quick point of personal privilege to introduce someone to you. You see that there's a new person here, Jeff Metesky, and I just wanted to take a personal point of privilege to just introduce Jeff to all of you. Jeff is a big part of the reason why I started really getting involved in advocacy around wheelchair use. And I want to thank all of you for sort of helping me learn. But, you know, the person who I got to experience the lived experience, not for myself, but being with somebody who lives in a wheelchair for 40 years now, has been very eye-opening to me. And it's that experience I've tried to bring to this process. And so I just wanted to take just a minute to thank Jeff for sharing so much of his life with me. And that I think he can say a few words. He's got the backstage view of all this with the committee. So, so welcome, Jeff. Did you want to say a few words, or I think you know some of the people on the call anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thanks, Bev. And yeah, just I want to say I've been following along with the task force meetings. And I want to thank everybody involved. It's been a really meaningful and insightful journey. As Bev mentioned, I've been a wheelchair user for about 40 years. And, you know, really, this is a complicated problem, but really looking forward to and appreciate the work you're all doing, and looking forward to the, you know, some meaningful action, you know, to come from this. And Bev, thank you. You know, your dedication and passion has been also much appreciated, and a key part of all of this as well. So, you know, carry on. I appreciate you hearing me today. And, you know, again, thanks again for all your work.
Thanks, Jeff. And when we first started dating, I was reading all about what, you know, when you date somebody who has a disability, it's a good idea to learn how to be an advocate for them. So I never do anything halfway, it appears. So here we all are. So with that said,
well, wait till I show you how to change a tire. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. So thank you all for that indulgence. So I want to just move forward. There may be some questions or discussion, hopefully not a lot. I think we've really tried to be as transparent with this process, but let me just tell you where we are right now. So the last 2 weeks, really, we've been all, I think, collectively back and forth with the report. I have tried to include all the remarks, revisions that people have added into it. And the final, although it's not final because we just got remarks from another state agency this morning that will be added in as an addendum. But the body of the report is basically, all of you have seen it at this point and have weighed in. And and then I think as a task force, we decided that because none of the recommendations are consensus recommendations, we would have unedited stakeholder responses from any and all stakeholders that wanted to have that included in the report. So what I want to do today, what we need to do today actually, is a vote to approve and then transmit the report to the committees of jurisdiction, which are public health, aging, human services, insurance, and I think general law, which oversees consumer protection. So, and I also want to just preface it by saying that a vote to support the report means you support the work of our committee, our collective work together. It means that you've been engaged, informed throughout the process, and have been included in the bodies of work. That you're acknowledging the fact that no recommendations are consensus, and that your views have been adequately represented by having the ability to have stakeholder responses. And that while you may not support any or all of the recommendations, we all agree that the problem of, or the trying to improve the wait periods for people who are wheelchair users in the state for repairs and service is the ultimate goal, even though we may not all agree on how we actually get here. And, you know, we wish all of our legislators the best of luck trying to figure that out, because we've spent the last year or more actually trying to come up with the best that we can put together. So with that, I'm going to stop, see if there's any questions or last minute remarks people would like to make for the record, and then we're going to vote. And we will be ending by 10 today, no later. So David, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, one second here. I'd like to address one of the DME industry slides that was included in the report. Language says the industry, quote, the industry agrees that there are problems with service and repair. However, the data indicates that Connecticut consumers in this task force are not representative of all consumers. I think this language being used by the DME industry is just another example of dismissive attitude towards legitimate problems and concerns being brought up in this task force. And I also feel it's disrespectful to the advocates that have been involved throughout this process, and that this is the industry's attempt to devalue, diminish, and delegitimize the very things we've advocated for. And that's it.
Okay, Wayne.
We're not devaluing the way that these consumers feel. You are 8 or 10, I can't remember how many. There are 5,000 people that have been that used wheelchairs in the state of Connecticut. Okay, unless you surveyed every single one of them, you cannot represent all their ideals. We have data that shows that in-shop service is very well received. You guys are completely against that. Okay, so it's just a view. We do not devalue that. We came into this willingly. We do respect you guys, and we want to listen, and that's why we're here. So, David, my apologies if you're taking exception to that. It's not the way it was intended.
Thanks, Wayne. Melissa?
Hi, good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair. I also have issues with what was said in the slides. Been a little bit reticent to talk, which is really uncharacteristic of me throughout this process, but I just really want to make some things clear. Lots of what the industry is saying is based on ableist premises. This isn't unusual. People all the time, the legislature will expect us to agree on something and be monolithic. The service provider industry will do that same thing. And if it appears that the industry is doing that, we're not saying we represent every person in Connecticut who uses a mobility device. That's ridiculous. Just like I couldn't represent every woman in Connecticut who is female. It kind of makes me feel tokenized. Well, you're supposed to represent everyone. First of all, we're just not a monolith. And I understand it's not how you meant this, but it's an ableist expectation to think that we'll all agree. None of us are suggesting that people who want to go to the shop shouldn't go to the shop. I think everyone who wants to go to the shop should go to the shop. I also think everyone who can't go to the shop, doesn't want to go to the shop, can't. The fact that the industry is trying to incentivize us to go to the shop, as you've said, is essentially holding disabled people hostages. And I've made this analogy before. How would any of you feel if you were told you could have your car in a total of maybe a 23-day process? Oh, and you can't take Uber because Uber's not accessible and you don't have other transportation options. As I said at the first meeting, I think that if the industry can't serve disabled people in our homes, and I understand that you can't, and I understand that's hard, but if you can't do that, I think there's serious flaws in your business model, and I think you should be looking at that rather than trying to manipulate us as a disabled community. Also, as I said before, the waiting time that's in the document is unacceptable right now. So I want to thank everyone for doing this, and that is what I have to say.
Thank you, Melissa. Jonathan?
Thank you. I also just want to echo David's concern with that comment, which was new and added. The slides that they presented, the addendum were a modified version focused on this statement based on their 1116 presentation slides. We are representative of the consumers in Connecticut. Maybe not every single consumer, but I have not, we represent decades of lived experience in wheelchairs. There has not been a single wheelchair user that I have spoken to in Connecticut that has not experienced the wait times that we are talking about. And the survey data that you present in these slides do not address the wait time experience at all. And they don't negate our concerns with the 90% of customers who cannot and who do not go into the shop. Any kind of satisfaction, great satisfaction results from in-shop experiences have nothing to do with the concerns that consumer advocates here on this task force have repeatedly pointed out. And it is extremely disrespectful to intentionally add the sentence at the end of this task force and say consumers in this task force are not representative. And it's just not the case. Furthermore, I want to point out that in the first slide of that addendum, there is a focus on portraying the acquisition time for parts, which is stated as 32 to 48 days, as being much longer on average than what was reported on your 11-2 presentation last year, November 2nd presentation. The wait time for parts on November 2nd were reported as being 3 to 5 days when in stock and 21 to 28 days when out of stock. So I just wanted to emphasize that difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Sure, Deputy Commissioner Skyers Thomas.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to quickly make some note that DCP submitted additional information for commentary, but it's not intended to be an addendum to the report. So the report as submitted and distributed would be what it was on its face, unless there were any other additional additions, right? So as DCP was kind of going through and trying to ascertain the amount of wheelchair users, we may have been off course because this is really not our area of expertise. So we look forward to kind of following this as it moves forward in the legislature, but just a point of clarity that the feedback sent is not intended to be a part of the report, nor a part of the addendum. So thank you for that.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you clarified that, because I assumed, as some of the other stakeholders, that this was something you wanted in the report. So you saw I had some comments about what you put in there, but that's fine. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, thank you for that.
Okay, Wayne.
Yeah, thank you, Bev. I'd like to address Jonathan's response to this. Okay, number one, I said it wasn't intent. Your views and the way you approach things and the way you guys have been approaching it, we appreciate. Okay, but the simple fact of the matter is, Jonathan, you addressed something in your writing that stated that in-shop repairs, The people didn't have Hoy lifts, they didn't have mats, they didn't have all these other things. If that was truly the case, then the satisfaction scores would have showed that, okay? Because if people couldn't get it, they would have done it. And I want to remind a couple of things too, all right? Number one, satisfaction scores from our perspective are done by outside sources. They're not done by employees. We hire survey people to do it, and they are given enough responses to make it statistically viable, okay? That's number one. Number two, I'd also like to point out, in the beginning, the state agencies were asked from the start, have any complaints been filed with the state? And their response was no, zero. Okay. So we put in our satisfaction scores because, again, you keep stating that that the majority of people want in the home. You want us to keep pushing for in the home. We've stated unequivocally that in the home and in the shop can never be equal. Okay. It doesn't exist in other businesses. Okay. It's not available. All right. We have an obligation to our consumers to alert them and say to them, you can get quicker service in the shop. If you can't, we want to come to you and we will. But plain and simple, that's where we're coming from.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Sheldon.
Sorry. Yeah. So I do think it's important. These slides that the industry put in were put in just yesterday. That's being referred to, the ones that say that these consumer that advocate members of the task force don't represent, that, I mean, and there's other things in there. And Jonathan pointed out the first slide has supposed timelines that don't reflect the industry's own data presented repeatedly, which shows, and Diane has acknowledged, it's over 2/3 of the time, everything's done. Prior auth is done, parts awaiting, you're just trying to get them out the door. So that slide isn't really appropriate. But I think it's time to call this what it is about the in-shop versus at home. What the industry says completely contradicts itself. It says over again, and it says in the new slides, it's a choice, that people should have the choice. Quote, consumers should have choices in how they want to have their equipment repaired. At the same time, you admit, and you put it right in your response, that you want to affirmatively incentivize, and I would use the word Melissa did too, manipulate people so they don't really have a choice. And you said why? You said because if it's the same, that you would people would not want to come into the shop. So I think it's really important to point out that when you say it's not possible to equalize between the two, and that is one of the recommendations of this task force, is that the word is comparable. That in saying that, you have created that it to be that way on purpose to incentivize a certain situation. It's not in any way inherent, and we need to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Sheldon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you're referring to a document that was included as part of the industry's response. And as we have decided and made clear as a task force that those responses would be not edited and that they would be part of the report. So I just want to acknowledge that nobody else other than the people here have seen that. So
Okay, that's fair.
This is not an opportunity to, I don't want to spend the next 45 minutes sort of going back and forth in a really negative way. I think, we really, everybody here is trying to do their best, and I want to just get this done and move on to the next step. So with that said, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, just two real quick points. First, I want to clarify that the slides that were added into the addendum were just updated information, bringing it to recognize November and December data. No differences other than that. And I just want to say, look, we genuinely came to the table here. We generally feel these times are exorbitant. They aren't what we want them to be, but we just want to be honest and clear that there are factors involved that are beyond our control. We want to be better. We are making commitments to be better. And I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. I don't see any other hands. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I do. Oh, Diane, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. I want to address, because I don't, Sheldon was representing in some of the comments about our backlogs, referencing back to my comments that parts are in and we're waiting to get our backlog. Yeah, those parts are in at 2/3 of that backlog and just trying to get it scheduled out. Keep in mind, if you guys remember my notations of how much of a backlog we had, because we're waiting for industry parts to get in. Those are to get out, to get scheduled. So let's not miscommunicate what the problem was, because during that backlog was part of the not having those parts in that were months that we were waiting for things. But keep in mind, even if I have all my parts in today and I had quick repairs, they still take 5 to 7 days to get from my manufacturers if something is individually configured or it's not in shop, it's not a typical routine part, to get it in. So I want to make sure that's very clear for everybody on this call, because when you're representing that, saying 2/3 already there to how to get it scheduled out. Well, yeah, that was my backlog, and that's a huge backlog that we were waiting on. It's not the typical norm. Even the typical norm, if I had that part on the shelf today, let's just say it was a tire, and we have it, we can get it out and schedule it. We're still 2 to 3 weeks out scheduling for in the home. And we're being very honest about that, because I'm not going to bump someone on the schedule because you called me today, and I got to bump someone then to get you done within that next time. And so we're just being very upfront with how far out we are scheduling things. And I just want to be very, very transparent with that. And that, I think that needs to be understood. And then to the point you're just saying, well, just double your staff and do all those other things. And there's all those other things we brought up, and we're trying and we're doing it. And I already lost a tech this past month, and we got back orders now trying to get more people in. It's a challenge. It's just not a matter of just grab more people. I want to grab more people. I need the people. We got to find the people and keep doing everything that's going on. And so I want to be very clear with that answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Sheldon?
Yeah, I didn't want to respond to that. The record of what Diane said in previously, it's in the minutes. We don't need to rehash that. It's a completely different thing. This is not a negative thing at all. I wanted to, and maybe we can talk about this later, but one of the things we have not addressed at all is what the regulation should look like in terms of the agency, right? So we say that there has to be some enforcement, and our recommendation is that it be a regulatory agency unidentified. And I just wanted to raise the concern about that. Oh, it's not really a concern, but acknowledging that we need a way. We're not going to do it in this hour, and this task force this is this last meeting, I guess. So, but somehow we need to figure out a way of which agency should be getting the reports. Obviously, there's going to be regular reports from the industry, and then doing the enforcement. So I just hope that we can maybe start a discussion about that, or people have thoughts about how we would do that, how we would decide that, who should decide that, et cetera. I just wanted to raise that because it's in the recommendations. It's really important, but we didn't put any flesh on that. Thank you.
This is Senator Seminar. I really want to address that particular issue. That issue is a legislative issue, and it is one that will be taken up with myself and my colleagues here. All the various committees have been addressed earlier by Beverly, and we will be sending the report to the committees of cognizance that we think will need to be involved in making policy and ultimately legislation going forth. So there are limitations to a task force. And I think that we as a task force have really been very comprehensive. And before we vote, I want to again acknowledge Beverly's commitment to this process. I think she's done a stellar job in allowing every one of the stakeholders to express their opinions and their views. And she's allowed everyone to come to the table and present their issues and has not really altered them at all in this report. So I want to remind people again that in this process, you personally will have the opportunity to say whatever it is you need to say to the legislators when we have a public hearing, and there will be a public hearing. So I know that Representative Gilchrist and Senator Lesser are committed to this, as it should be apparent to you that Representative Case and myself are committed to it. So I just want to give you once again, remind you that you will have your opportunity to dispel or negate or express anything you want to express during the public hearing, and it will be heard, just as it has been heard here, although you may not feel that you were heard given the recommendations that we came up with, or the recommendations that Bev came up with. Those recommendations, by the way, will be taken into consideration. But again, what you need to take out of it is those are recommendations of this task force. It will be the various committees of cognizance that will come up with the legislation. So these are just recommendations. And I appreciate, by the way, I don't want to end this process on a negative note. I'd like to end it on a positive note, saying that I appreciate all the hard work that every stakeholder has put into this. We've all worked very, very hard. In fact, we are to be commended, and it has been certainly a discussion up here at the LOB, how many times we have met and how much dedication and time we've put into this. And I wouldn't have done it any other way. I'm happy we put the time and energy into it. I also want to say I'm very happy with the end product, because I think it reflects everyone's position. So that's where I'll leave it today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Senator Seminara. Wayne?
Yeah, hi, Beverly. I'd like to address two issues real quick. Number one is, since the committee has jurisdiction, the Health and Services Committee has jurisdiction over DSS and Medicaid, are these requirements, and I don't think we've ever discussed this, are these requirements only going to be applied to Medicaid consumers? I know, for instance, the insurance representatives have indicated they're not going to follow the report's recommendation, nor are they required to follow state legislation, because a lot of those fall under federal. So I'd just like to clarify that.
I don't think we can answer that question, Wayne.
Okay.
Once again, we're gonna, Human Services will certainly address the Medicaid issues, but we're certainly, at least from my perspective, we're certainly not here to just legislate for that one population. I'm not here to pick winners and losers. I'm here to address the wheelchair issues of everyone in the state of Connecticut, whether you have Medicaid insurance, private insurance, state insurance, whatever it is. So that's how I can answer it. And I do believe that that is why we will be sending the report to multiple committees, because there will be a lot that has to be weighed in passing some legislation with this.
Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate that. My second point, Beverly, is I want to talk about the penalties. From the start, I understood this task force was set up to identify ways to fix the problems with service and repairs. Okay, to immediately assign penalties seemed punitive and not in the spirit of really what we're trying to accomplish here. This type of legislation is going to be something brand new. All right. We all know that creating untested legislation sometimes does not result fully in the desired outcomes. Okay. There are unintended consequences. We've seen that in a lot of different legislation on the federal level and on all sorts of things. During the meetings, the industry has stepped up and gave concessions when we were not under any obligation to do so. That shows that we want to get this issue resolved. Now, we support the stakeholders should work together, should develop metrics, and meet either quarterly or monthly to look at the progression. We want that to ensure that things are moving in the right direction with this legislation. The reporting should be shared with the legislators and the representatives and the senators on this committee. And again, then we can look at it after potentially a year and add legislative tweaks. Okay, after we get the desired outcome, we're all wanting to go to the right thing. My concern is the penalties are punitive, and essentially what could happen is if we institute new legislation, it's not going to get what we want to get done, and we want to fix that along the way. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Okay, so we have Representative Case, Rick, and Jonathan, and then I'd like to ask the committee that we move towards the next step, which is very important so that legislators can actually see what we've been up to and start their part in the process. So Representative Case?
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to, once again, thank everybody for coming to the table. It's one thing that we wanted to have before we put legislation is we want to hear the majority of the stakeholders. And to everybody's point, I mean, Senator Seminara and myself are 2 of 187 legislators. So we are just a small number of people that have to go and sell this to committee chairs and to the whole committee. And with the legislative process, once we put something together, guys, there's things in here, they talk about fines. We talk about Department of Consumer Protection has to look at this. So there's going to be automatic referrals once it gets out of Human Services. That's what happened last year when the bill went out. It had an automatic referral to the judiciary because of the fines. So this is going to have an automatic referral, I believe, to insurance, because I don't believe we can do anything beyond what we have control over with DSS. So it's other insurance stakeholders. I believe it'll have a referral to judiciary. It'll have a referral undoubtedly to appropriations, because we have to put it into an agency that it might cost more to bring somebody in. So there'll be 3 referrals once it comes out of ours, and we have 13 weeks to do that. So I just want to emphasize, I think it's great that we got a lot of information. This is something that is, we need to take a deep dive and a look at. But it's got a long road ahead. And I think that's the smartest thing that Beverly and the team did, was to move this report to multiple committees so they have it ahead of time. Instead of getting it after Human Services drafts a bill. We draft a bill, but our bill can be changed by different committees. So things can be changed by 3 or 4 different committees, but it can be changed before it comes to the House floor, before it goes to the Senate floor. So we have a lot of steps to go. It's not just coming out of Human Services, because there's a lot of stuff that has to be enacted in order to make this happen. So we need to get this task force voted out, get it to Human Services, because we will be meeting with the chairs, I believe, Friday to go over priorities. We need to get it to legal so we can start getting it drafted. It has not begun to be drafted yet. We have to wait for this report to come out. So we have a long process to go. I want to thank everybody for coming to the table. We will have many more meetings, I'm sure, once it comes to a public hearing. And there will be public hearings in multiple committees. So we have to be ready for that. All right. So I want to thank everybody, and let's move forward.
Oh, thank you, Representative Case. Okay, Rick, Jonathan, and then I see Seth has raised his hand, which I'm not sure we've heard from Seth throughout this process. So I will, and then I'd like to really move to the next step. So Rick, go ahead.
So when there was 3, 4, 5 rehab companies in Connecticut and everybody was competing, I don't remember having these long wait times. That being said, we do need these wait times, or these time periods, to be enforced because of that reason. The companies are buying up the small companies, and then they're giving crappy service, and we have nowhere else to turn. Also, I don't understand why the insurance companies would care less or more whether you come to repair our chairs in 3 days or 25 days. It doesn't cost the insurance company any more money for you to come out in a timely manner than not. So I don't know why you even bring that up. So yeah, if you come out and fix the chairs faster for everybody, it doesn't matter what insurance you have, because it's not going to cost any more to the insurance company. That's all.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, Jonathan and Seth, and then we're going to move to the vote. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for attending this task force and pushing through with it. And I just want to remind everyone that the only way to address the timeliness issue for all wheelchair users in Connecticut, regardless of their insurance, is to address the issues within the CRT industry itself and to make mandates on the timeliness for those assessment and repair appointments. Having a continuing advisory council meeting with consumers and legislators and CRT members is welcome, but that is no guarantee for wheelchair users that this will get done. Remind everyone that because this is not a typical business, we cannot vote with our dollars in this process. We are locked in through the insurance that we have with the CRT provider that we must use. We have no way to advocate for change other than through task force like this and through legislation, which is why a mandate has to come out of this and penalties must be included to make those mandates accountable. Just thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, Seth?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, senators and representatives. I think the work product that we have before us is comprehensive and certainly reflective of the months of work of this task force. I just wanted to raise one question or suggestion to you, Madam Chair, and that is on the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2 of the report, you referenced the WHO report. And to me, when you look at that, I just encourage you to look at that and clarify and distinguish the difference between the WHO report and the report of the task force. To me, the way it's written right now, it could leave a legislator or policymaker to interpret the WHO report more heavily than this report. And I don't think that's our intent at all. So I think for legislators and policymakers, we just need to, since we're talking about the 4 guiding principles, we're talking about the WHO report. I think we need to clarify and state that and then distinguish in your paragraph where it says it's my hope that this report, you're going back to the task force report. I just think we should clarify that so it's crystal clear for all the readers moving forward. But again, great work. And from my perspective, it looks like the work is just beginning. So I look forward to working with everybody in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Seth. Okay, thank you for that. That's a good point. Okay, so at this point, if folks could stand at ease for 1 minute, I just want to talk to the committee attorney about how to do this next step. So just hold up for a sec. Okay, just trying to figure out the procedural steps. So what I'd like to do is entertain a motion to approve and transmit the report to the committees of jurisdiction under Special Act 23-22, which is Human Services, Public Health, Aging, General Law, and what's the last one? Aging, Insurance. Sorry. Okay. So, Senator Seminara, you want to make the motion or?
Yes, I'll make the motion to approve and transmit the wheelchair repair task force report to be transmitted to the various committees of cognizance.
Second, that.
Second by Jay. Okay. So I think if there's any discussion, Representative Smith, you have discussion on the motion?
No, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I was just going to second the set.
Oh, you were going to second. Okay, so we have 2 seconds. Okay, so do I have all in favor of this? Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And any abstentions? You have to speak up because I can't track this. Jonathan Slifka, I see you're an abstention.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm just seeing something in the chat from an attorney who says we're supposed to have a roll call vote for hybrid meetings. Okay, so I guess we will do that then. Chandra, do you want to call the roll?
Yes. Beverly Brakeman.
Wait, hold on a second. Checking with the committee attorney. Hold on. If we're not like we're not under joint rules here, so I'm not sure if that's actually accurate. Okay, apparently we don't have to do that because we don't fall under joint rules. I'm happy to do that if people feel that's important, but I didn't hear a lot of abstentions or opposition, so I'd prefer if people are okay to go forward. It sounds like we had enough yeses to approve the report. Barbara?
Madam Chair,
Yep.
the record, I will respectfully abstain as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you think? Should we? Okay, so let's.
Bev, I'm sorry, it's only 25 people. Maybe we should.
Let's just do a roll call vote. All right, Chandra, go ahead, please.
Beverly Brakeman.
Yes.
Senator Seminara.
Yes.
Representative Case.
Representative Case votes yes.
Representative Smith.
Representative Smith votes yes.
David Morgana.
David Morgana votes yes.
Jonathan Sigworth.
Jonathan Sigworth votes yes.
Rick Famlietti.
Yes.
Michelle Dupre.
Yes.
Joseph Short.
Joe, I think if you're voting, you're on mute.
Very
you
good. Oh, yeah, they made him. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Seth Johnson.
Seth Johnson votes yes.
Melissa Marshall.
Melissa Marshall votes yes.
Sheldon Tobman.
Sheldon Tobman votes yes.
Wayne Grau.
Wayne Grau votes yes.
Diane Rassicott.
Diane Rassicott votes yes.
John Getz.
John Getz votes yes.
Gary Gilberti.
Gary Gilberti votes yes.
Susan Halpin.
Susan Halpin abstains.
Daryl Roop.
Daryl Rupp votes yes.
Apologies. Thank you. John Slivka.
John Slivka abstains.
Shirley Skyers Thomas.
Voting yes.
Ginny Mahoney.
Ginny Mahoney votes yes.
Barbara Cass.
Barbara Cass abstains.
Jim Carson.
I don't think he's on the call. Madam Clerk, are you ready? Yeah.
Total number voting 22, those voting yea 19, those voting nay 0, 3 abstaining, 1 absent not voting.
Okay, well, it looks like we have a report to be transmitted. On that note, we started down this road saying we knew we would come up with something and that not everyone would be super happy, and that's kind of where we landed. The next step is going to be a long journey, and I guess I would, I would end by, thanking all of you for giving me the honor of being able to chair this task force. I know this is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of a very different road. And, I just want to thank everybody for staying engaged and for working with me and with everybody here. And, I think we do really all care about this issue. So onward we go. So thank you all. Have a very nice week, and I'm sure we'll all be seeing each other again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for all of your work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It is very impressive what you
It really is.
accomplished.
Thank you.
Phenomenal.